I have nutritionists around me, I have nurses, I have doctors, and a lot of them say you need to eat more whole foods, right? You need the nutrition from whole foods. So we set out to pair the intersection of whole food ingredients with cannabis so that we weren't alienating consumers that said, geez, I don't want to go back to having candy,
Yeah.
and then you have consumers that are like, well, I'm actually looking for nutritious value.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Ganja Show. Our guest for the day is Scott Jennings. He is the CEO and founder of Pantry Food Co. He worked for nearly a decade at the Wall Street for doing impact investing, and now he's trying to put food and cannabis together and trying to create a wellness brand. How are you doing, Scott?
Bibbin, I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just working in this difficult cannabis industry. It's MJ BizCon going right now, but both of us are sitting here and talking about cannabis, which is amazing. Yeah, let's get started and talk about how you got into cannabis in the first place.
Yeah, sure. So growing up in New York City or just outside of New York City, I was not shy of any experiences in life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was around clubs at an early age, maybe cigarettes at an early age. I was just immersed in what a city will provide you, right? A lot of different experiences from all the things a city provides. And so when I was very young, I tried cannabis. Maybe I was young teens, and I had a very active mind, right? And I remember, like, you don't want to get in trouble. Everybody, my parents were not, they may have been closet consumers, but they didn't want their kids consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember laying in bed and being super restless. And, that little toke before you go to bed, even, which was crazy at a young age, really calmed my mind, and it helped me understand that there's something more here. It helped me relax, helped me sleep, and it helped me wake up and have a great day. And so I was introduced at a very young age, but I'd say it got crystallized over my life, right? Because of my experiences, I went to a large college. And after college, I went and worked on Wall Street. I owned a bar in New York City, and I was around a lot of, I'll use the two major ones: a lot of booze and a lot of unhealthy food,
Yeah.
right? And there's a saying that your 20s, you're invincible. And I sure felt invincible because, there wasn't enough pizza I could eat, or drinks I could have, or nights I could go out, or, burning the candle and getting 1 hour of sleep a night.
Yeah.
And so, through all that, you really started to open your eyes and realize, I've had some pretty crazy experiences, some very bad experiences, and none of them have been on cannabis,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's, cannabis is a gateway drug or not. I think alcohol could very much be the gateway drug. I think your judgment goes way down and you feel invincible and you can do anything. And then, after about 10 years on Wall Street, I just thought there's got to be a higher purpose to life than making money.
Yeah.
I was raised to make sure you can take care of yourself and your family, and financial security is very important. So I worked very hard on that, but there had to be more. And that's where, impact investing really came around in my mind, where it's like, can you invest money and get a good return, but also do something that's good for society and humanity?
Yeah.
And so when you look at cannabis, it provides all of that. And I could probably ramble on how cannabis is probably the greatest impact investment I've ever seen. But I'll pin it in that. And that's how I got into it. And that's, I've been a fan of the plant my whole life.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I was actually going to say that cannabis seems like one of the biggest impact investing like areas right now, considering how much it
It,
has helped like so many people.
it is. And what's crazy is, like, you have to scratch your head, Vipin, because you talk to some impact investors and they don't see it. And
Hmm.
you're like, you're scratching your head, like, how do you not see it, right? And so there's a great investor I follow, and she says you have to unlearn a lot of things in life to relearn things. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people learn that cannabis is not impact investment. It's oh man, I wish I had it, but my town right here in Los Angeles, they just voted on opening up a retail store and the signs are it leads to crime, you know? And so it's like, you still have people thinking in a legal market in California, there's still plenty of people that think it is not impact investing. It leads to crime, it leads to poor health. It's all those stigmas that were assigned to it. And it just boggles the mind.
Yeah, especially being in the industry, you're correct that you see so many things. Even when I was working at retail location, I would have like senior citizens coming in. They're like, I never do this. I don't want to go to a cannabis store, but they're inside one right now. They're telling me I never do this, but they want their CBD to sleep. So they accept that it's good, but they still have that stigma behind it. They're like, oh, I don't smoke. I'm like, I understand there's so many more things to do. And I think that's what you're trying to do with pantry food as well, like expanding basically the palette of cannabis, not just focusing on flower or smoking. So how do you think that how do you get people educated on that aspect?
Yeah. And just to touch on that last point, I've been in cannabis since 2016 and I still have a stigma. And I'm
Hmm.
I'm like frustrated with myself. People ask me, well, what do you do? Oh, I run a CPG business, or I'm an investor, which
Yeah.
I also do. But it's absolutely crazy how hard it's ingrained in my head about how much benefits I know. And I still feel the need to shy away from it in conversation. And so I'm
Yeah.
working on that. And I share that because a lot of people, they're like, wow, cannabis is a big thing. Yeah, but you have to remove this boulder of past stigma that's been ingrained in so many people's heads. And, we're creatures of habit. So,
Yeah.
a lot of us, what we know, we don't want to, evolve. And so on the food aspect, I was really dissatisfied because if you take a step back and you look at how many benefits cannabis can have, and you look at the broader market, you see a lot a lot of pain in America, right? You see a lot of heart disease and obesity, right? And so you start looking at this and you say, man, like cannabis is a wellness product. It can be a medical product, it can be a wellness product, and I've now expanded to it could be a performance product, right?
Hmm.
So it can help in a lot of different areas of your life. But again, going back to my childhood, I was around a lot of experiences, and while a lot of us in the cannabis industry say there's nothing wrong with smoking cannabis, you look at your older, members in your family or outside of your family, and you see them hit a little joint, and a lot of lung distress, right? And
Yeah.
so you start saying, well, research is not around. We'd love research to be there, but they've been sleeping at the wheel. Regulators are sleeping at the wheel. And so, I said, there's got to be something better. And when I looked to edibles, I said, edibles are a great way to bring people in because just like how people have a stigma with cannabis, people have a stigma with smoking, right? They
Yeah.
want to take care of their lungs. We just got out of a pandemic that is a respiratory, attack on your system. And so people are saying, okay, maybe I'm open to the benefits, but I'm not open to smoking it. So edibles came on the scene, but I was really, really disappointed because if you take a good thing and then you just pair it with a bunch of unhealthy, processed, empty calorie, harmful ingredients,
Yeah.
you're like, what are we doing? We're taking a good thing and making it bad. And a lot of those ingredients, they may add to the addiction, right? So it's like we talked about sugar a little bit, you and I, and sugar is very prominent. And if you look around the world and how much you consume sugar, it's damn near in everything. And when
Yeah.
you look at the addiction of sugar compared to cannabis, it's much, much higher. So, I felt a responsibility, Vipin. I said, there's got to be consumers like me that do not want to go back to having candy. I graduated from having candy a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
I am trying to better my health. And just because I want to trade off of combusting doesn't mean I should go back to having, Sour Patch Kids and a bunch of,
Yeah.
candy crap, right? So in my life, I've been influenced by a lot of people, especially as I came out to California. I have nutritionists around me, I have nurses, I have doctors, and a lot of them say you need to eat more whole foods, right? You need the nutrition from whole foods. So we set out to pair the intersection of whole food ingredients with cannabis so that we weren't alienating consumers that said, geez, I don't want to go back to having candy,
Yeah.
and then you have consumers that are like, well, I'm actually looking for nutritious value, right? Or I'm looking for it in a medium that suits my dietary restriction, right? Nobody talks about our are type 1 diabetics. One of the first SKUs we came out with was a no processed, no refined sugar SKU to make sure diabetics knew that if they were looking for something, we were there to bridge that gap, right? And I think that's when you look at the diversity of consumers coming in, you're going to have 20-year-olds, you're going to have people that want to combust. I'm not here to tell you it's wrong, it's bad. I think people should do what they want to do, but personally, I know that there's a lot of consumers that are looking for vegan products, whole food products, looking for functional benefits. They're looking to solve a problem, and not just get stoned. I don't mind Friday night. You want to get together and get a little high or elevated and watch Netflix. I'm with you. But if you look at the data, consumers are looking to solve major issues, from anxiety to relaxation and relief to sleep to pain, inflammation, immunity. And so Pantry not only wanted to meet them and bridge them with a medium that would suit their dietary or desired food characteristics, but we also wanted to meet them and say, we can help you increase your quality of life.
Yeah.
Because we know we're all dealing with these ailments. And if we can help people live better qualities of life, we're doing our job.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I think most edibles on the market right now here in Canada, they have like sugar coating on it. They're basically made to mask the taste of a distillate rather than providing any other value from it. It's just a way for them to deliver THC or CBD to the person's body. But you're right, there's nothing else in it. Like gummy is just like empty
But
calorie.
go one step further. They're delivering you poor ingredients, but they're also trying to maximize their profit, right? So it's profits over people. And it goes back to impact investing. You can sell cannabis and you can help consumers and you can also make a profit. It doesn't have to be profit over people and give them the cheapest quality ingredients possible and the cheapest quality cannabis and just make it as cheap as possible for people to buy it. I mean, there's just so much more we can do. And so I agree with you on the consumer products. You at the retail store, you see those products, you say, oh man, we could be better.
Yeah.
But I hold investors accountable too. As an investor myself, I said, we can be better. We don't have to put out more harmful products. We can, sacrifice a couple margin points to put out something better quality and build more trust with consumers. Because ultimately, there's also a know better, do better trend.
Yeah.
And as I stopped eating candy, maybe you stopped eating candy, other people will stop eating candy. As people get aware that this is no good, they're going to trade off. And this goes to conversation we had about Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola owns a lot of brands, but what did they invest in? A water brand.
Yeah.
If somebody's trading off Coca-Cola, they may be going to water. So Coke's like, hey, we got you. We're here. And I think that's, corporate responsibility to provide, meet a consumer where they're at, but try to provide healthier options so that they can trade up and take better care of their health, not just get a little, elevated and have empty calories and harmful ingredients in their body.
Yeah, it's interesting that most of their new investments, I mean, Coca-Cola's investments are either in like water, health drinks, or energy drinks, something like that. Nothing new on the soda side, which I think everyone agreed that it's bad for you, but obviously everyone's consuming it. So Coke is like, okay, let's just try and explore something else. Yeah, let's move on and talk.
McDonald's adding a salad. McDonald's added a salad. Mondelez is adding vegan paleo chocolate. This was part of the thesis, Vipin. Look at the trends. Large CPG companies understand that consumers are shifting off the healthy products. They can still make revenue here, and they still try to, but they're shifting off for healthier alternatives. And that's part of what we're trying to fill that gap.
Yeah, just being in the market, what have you seen in terms of trends changing? Are edibles more acceptable? Do you have any data in terms of, are there new people, like first time cannabis users going towards edibles or beverages because that's like the easiest way, or that's how you see in the movies, right? Like brownies or something like that. That's something that's been propped up so much. Do you see that trend?
The trend, I wouldn't say the stigma I continue to see is like, hey, had the 1,000 milligram brownie in college and I don't do edibles anymore. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you really have to you have to win their trust and walk them back. You have to unteach them to teach them, right? If you drink a whole bottle of liquor, you're not going to feel good,
Yeah.
So we walk them back, and one of the trends is microdosing. We start with very little, and sometimes I'll tell a consumer they'll take half of one of our bites, which is 5 milligrams THC, 5 milligrams CBD, and they'll take half, and they'll say, Scott, I didn't feel anything. It doesn't work. And I'd say, well, did you feel better? Did you sleep better? It's not always about getting elevated. It's
Yeah.
about feeling better, and it's working in your body, trying to reduce that inflammation and make you feel better. And then they turn around and they say, you know what, maybe I do feel better. And then I say, look, that's how you ease in. Now, as far as dose, that is very subjective, right? And we don't have a lot of data around that. But I'll say one of the trends that I think a lot of people in cannabis field a lot of these calls, it's cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was at an event in Venice, and a very nice couple, stopped us and said, oh, Pantry, we love Pantry, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, amazing. Like, I'm so glad you like it. And then they said, can we talk to you for a second? And they said, look, we've been giving our father, Pantry products to help him with cancer. You know, what more should we do? How are we doing? What dose should we give him? Right. And
Yeah.
this is why we partner with nurses and doctors and a whole host of people way smarter than me, because consumers are looking for answers and they're looking to solve problems, whether it's sleep or cancer. Consumers are looking for solutions. We talked about, how cannabis started in most of these states. It was started by moms.
Yeah.
Moms were sick and tired of the Western medicines available, and they said there has to be a better alternative. And then you find out some lady in Germany is giving her kid a little bit of cannabis oil, and it's reducing seizures tremendously, right? So people, when their backs are against the wall, that's the trend I see. When you have there's a saying, everything matters till you have a health risk. And then
Yeah.
the only thing that matters when you have a health risk is your health risk. And so the trend I'm seeing, or the trend we're working very hard in, is meeting these consumers that are trying to better their lives. You throw a rock, everybody's been hit by cancer somewhere in their family. And people are saying, I don't want to go that same route.
Yeah.
Chemo looks long, it's painful. It's in some ways, the side effects could be more detrimental to you than the benefits. And so, people are looking for solutions. That's the trend I see. People want to take back control. They want to control their health. They want to be empowered with their health. And we want to be there to say, if you want to be healthy, it's not about running 20 miles, right? Or drinking all the water in the world. It's holistic health, right? It's putting the
Yeah.
phone away. It's journaling. It's exercise. It's meditation. But our endocannabinoid system and cannabinoids can play a role in that. And so we see that trend, and then maybe a micro trend here, which is really just hidden, is the performance aspect.
Yeah.
A lot of people use cannabis in performance, and we did at the event, there was a lot of NFL free agents there. And it's, cannabis and NFL players have gone hand in hand for some time.
Yeah.
Michael Phelps, smoking weed, everybody's like, oh, wow, we're shocked. The best swimmer in the world, consumes cannabis. Well,
Yeah.
I think we're just not telling the full story. And I think it goes back to that stigma is not too many people are wanting to come out. And so we want to get out of the bro culture, like smoke fest events. And we're moving towards those wellness events, right? Where you get a little cannabis education, farm to table food, meditation, breath work, ice bath, exercise. Like, we think consumers are looking for that. I know for myself, I'm tired of going to the bar. I don't need to smoke 1,000 joints. I'm looking to get a better experience out of life, and I want the experience to be good for my health in parallel. And I think a lot of people are thinking that in the back of their head. A lot of us are confused, like one year eggs are good for you. Next year eggs are bad for you. Coffee's good, coffee's bad. Cannabis good, cannabis bad. A lot of us are confused, and we can learn a lot from peer to peer. And I also think it's what's good for me may not be good for you. So we need to stop telling everybody what to do with their life and just go back to, we're guides, we're peer-to-peer help, and that's what we're trying to do with Pantry. We're not trying to tell you, take 5 milligrams and you're fine.
Yeah.
And people get a little edgy with this, right? Because they have to play a more active role. And I told the couple that came up to me, I said, look, If you get up to 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 milligrams and you feel your father is, maybe getting too psychoactive of an experience, you should note that and cap him there and then try to increase the CBD.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't just start there. I sent them a journal article about, somebody beating cancer with the keto diet and cannabis. And so when you look at cannabis, or sorry, you look at cancer, it, from the research I see, it feeds off of carbs and sugars.
Yeah,
So this goes back to, if we're using cannabis to sleep or combat cancer, but it's loaded with sugar, are we really helping them sleep better or combat cancer? Or are we really just masking? And so those are some of the trends I see, but it's, you have to be careful, because who you ask, you'll hear something completely different.
different. Yeah.
If you go to the store, which you spend more time at the store, they'd say, ooh, this joint that's 30%, like this thing's flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's like, you go to a winery, they'll tell you what wine's selling. You go to a whiskey shop, they'll tell you what whiskey's going. And the trends I'm focused on are the know better, do better trends to live a better quality of life and help people solve problems to be better for themselves, their family, their society. And so those are from my perspective.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. I think especially cancer is, like you said, you just throw a rock and you'll find someone who has had cancer in their family, because it's one of the most common and worst diseases. The Western medicine has been, I guess, it's good, like it helps you recover from cancer, but like the impact that it has in your body, I've personally seen it firsthand. It just sucks the life out of you. So if there is something which can help you, that's something really great. But I think the trend that I have seen is a lot of people focusing just on cannabis. They're like, CBD cures cancer, and that's the end of it. But I don't think that's the end of it, right? Like, imagine if there was like one magical thing that would cure anything, and people would flock to it. It's something that would aid you into like increasing your performance, like you said, or helping you with the inflammation or the cancer. So I think that messaging has gone too far, where people wanted to legalize cannabis and they were like, this is a magical drug, just legalize it, which it
It's
was,
greenwashing. It's
yeah,
greenwashing. You're taking something and you're overextending the benefit of it, right? So
yeah,
like a great example, an investor deck came across my desk yesterday, and they're pairing coconut water with alcohol because it gives you the hydration, right? And I said, well, let's look into that, right? And
yeah,
it's not coconut water, it's coconut concentrate, which is boiled, and maybe the hydration and nutrition comes out of it. And so
yeah,
there's a lot of greenwashing, and this goes back to peer to peer. I don't think you're going to lie to me, Vipin. You're going to tell me about your experience and your knowledge,
hmm,
but a lot of people are putting the dollar before the consumer, and that is just greenwashing and say it's the be all end all. And that's why when you talk to me, you hear me say the word holistic. If you really care, there's no silver bullet. It's
yeah.
a holistic approach to maintaining and improving your health that is not just cannabis.
Definitely. I think with that coconut water idea, you just add pineapple to it and it's like pina colada drink, I think. So I don't know what they were trying to do with it, but yeah, that was pretty interesting to see. Yeah, let's dive into, I think, Ayurveda. We just had an interesting conversation on LinkedIn where you said you were trying to get something in the US with Ayurveda. There's this one sentiment across India is anything that comes to West gains popularity. Yoga isn't popular. It is popular in India, but it's way more popular in India. Way more companies have been able to add their capitalistic, brains to it and make so much money from it. So I guess Ayurveda would be one of those things again, but would love to hear what you guys are trying to do with it.
You hit a nail on the head. I was at yoga this morning, and I love yoga.
Yeah,
It's fantastic. You know, we talk about stigmas, right? And we talk about unlearning, right? And
yeah,
I think like in life, we just have to be a student of life. Things change. Like we hold positions too tightly, right?
mm-hmm.
And so India has such a rich history, right? Like you probably know way better than me. You've shared some nuggets with me, and to ignore that history, I think does a huge disservice, right? We can
Mm-hmm.
learn. I've always said you can learn from anybody, whether it's a baby or an elderly person or a random stranger. You can learn something, and so we've focused on, like I said, whole foods, but we've also dabbled with herbs and spices to bring them into the mix.
Yeah.
And Ayurveda is something that, like, as I get older and older, I keep hearing about it more and more. And so, just like any of these topics where I get curious, I started looking into it. I made friends with Abhishek and Hemp Street, and he says, we're solving problems over here too. We're trying to help medical patients solve problems. I said that's fantastic, and he's going after some very notable ones, right? Like
Yeah.
IBS and gut health, huge, right? But he's also going after PMS and period relief, right? Which is a big problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, not firsthand experience for me, right? But I'm not deaf, right? I look at data. I've had very strong influence of females around me in my life, and if I want to help consumers, I do know that CPG is largely led by female buyers,
Yeah.
right? Like in my household, everything's bought by the wife. Like that is how a lot of American purchasing is done, and so we wanted to lean further into our female community, and we wanted to try to provide them something to help them with relief, right? And I think when you speak to female consumers, they seem way more acute to solving a problem than looking for the recreational high.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up, maybe it's 9 guys and 1 girl, smoking a joint, right? But it's like females are not, females also, in my experience, they want to have control. They don't want to be like too high where they lose control, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's same with elderly too, right? Because they feel more comfortable in control. And so, speaking with Abhishek, we started looking at his formulation and how it's working for female consumers or female medical patients in India. And he educated me on why they use bamboo and why they use ashwagandha and why they use this different ratio of cannabinoids, and says it's been around for thousands of years. And you're
Yeah.
just like, your mind's like, what? Because, like, a lot of us think India, like you told me, like cannabis is illegal. It's not
Yeah.
sold, but then you find out there's actually a pretty, robust growing medical side of this. And so speaking with him and I spoke the same language. It is about helping consumers. And so we're taking the Ayurvedic formula, right, that's dated back for thousands of years. We're taking that unique ratio of cannabinoids that pairs THCV, CBD, THC, CBD, all at different ratios. And we're putting that in a SKU that's going to be released to try to help more female consumers. And that gets me really excited because while there's conflicting data here, and I'd like to put you on the spot for a second. 100 people come into the store. What's the ratio of male to female from your experience?
Yeah. For me personally, I think it would be somewhere between like 70-30, something like that. Yeah.
So I've seen data 80-20, right?
Yeah.
80% men, 20% female. And just like, why is that, right? And the word safety comes up. It's new, it's unfamiliar, and it's like, do you want to go in there? And you don't know what all these terms mean. And so,
Yeah.
we really wanted to lean into the consumers that seem to not feel comfortable at a dispensary, right? And that may
Yeah.
be females. It's, down here, one of the pain points is we start medical, and then when we go recreational, the medical patients get pushed aside
Yeah.
because they want too much time. They want to talk to you, Vip, and they want to know, is this going to help me,
Oh,
educate
for
me?
sure. Yeah.
You know,
You're right, exactly. When I see people coming for medical ailments, they want to spend time there because they would want to talk about their experience, what they've used before, what doesn't work for them, what does work for them. There's so much things that they need before they put anything into their body because obviously, like you said, it's for medical reasons. It's not for just like getting high. So they won't just agree to buy anything. And that's super important. Uh, Data might be a bit different here in Canada because it's been federally legal. So it's much more acceptable, I think, as compared to the US because it's just federally legal across uh, Canada, right? So I see so many people coming in, getting edibles in, but you're right, that wellness aspect needs to be much bigger share of the market than it is now, and I think that's it's going bigger. Just talking about your mentionings about Ayurveda itself. I think Hemp Street has been doing some amazing work in terms of helping. I think that's the only company in India focusing on period pains, and then people followed suit after that. Like obviously, you see something working, you follow the suit. But I even talked to one of their co-founders before, and he was explaining how things they were doing things in the right way, because I could have just called him and been like, "Yeah, can you get me a prescription?" Which is easily possible to do in India now, and Canada, I got a prescription online for medical cannabis, so it's easy. But no, they were like, "No, go to a doctor, talk to them," because they're not just trying to make money. They just don't want you to sell you something and then get rid of it. You know what I mean? They want you to actually go to a doctor, learn what your problems are, work with them, because it's a long term solution and not like one time thing, right? So yeah.
And that it just conflicts me. Growing up in New York, it's not unknown to capitalism, right? And working on Wall Street is not unknown to capitalism either. But if capitalism goes too far, you start to see that I usually look at a bell curve, right? And,
Hmm.
and things can be very good, but on the other side, they can be hurtful. And so when you look at the dispensaries and you look at the owners and you look at the balance sheets and you look at the financials, they don't want you spending more time with the
Yeah.
consumer. They want you turning them over for volume and sales. And
Yeah.
so this is where we need that fragmentation, right? We need to split these groups up. If you go into GNC, a consumer has a lot more questions, or Vitamin Shop. If
Hmm.
you go into Whole Foods, they have a lot of questions, right? If you're going in just for the strongest flower, you don't have a lot of questions, right? You just,
Hmm.
what's the strongest, freshest flower, and in and out. And so, I really do appreciate Hemp Street's guidance towards, this is not a daily supplement, right? This
Yeah.
is supposed to be taken when you're in pain, and then you're supposed to come off it. Because if, I believe it's Ayurvedic guidance that if you're taking something all the time, that's not what its purpose is. Its
Yeah.
purpose is to solve and then to stop. Capitalism is all about repeat purchase. They want
Yeah.
you there as many times as fast as possible. And so, like we talked about, you're walking out of the store with 6 Coca-Colas because you're going to have one in the elevator, you're going to have one at your desk. And it's just like we can be better stewards of capitalism. And so, speaking with somebody all the way across the world in India and realizing that we share that passion,
Hmm.
right? And then bridging with you and having this discussion, like that's the trend that gets me excited.
Yeah.
Let's stop hurting people. Let's spend the time educating. And I use capitalism in a different way because I know all these people have questions, and I know it's not scalable to see somebody for an hour each time.
Yeah.
So we're leaning very heavily into digital education, which is a little bit different than Hem Street, right? They have the practitioners and they go in and you spend time, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of repeat questions.
Yeah.
And one of the best things about technology is like, oh wow, Vipin had a question. Let's record it. Let's get the answers. Let's transcribe it. That way, if anybody has that question again, we can give them this, bring their education from 0 to 90. And
Yeah.
then if they need some extra guidance on that, we can do that.
Definitely. I think that's the most important part. Like you said, the education aspect is missing. But another thing that I've seen a lot is miseducation. Like I see so many customers, they were like, "Oh, I saw this online." I had this one customer who wanted a topical, and he was like, "Give me something which has 1,000 milligrams of THC in a topical." I'm like, "Nobody makes this here." He's like, "No, I read it online. The 1,000 milligrams of THC." I'm like, "Nobody makes it in
Well,
Canada. How do I?"
this is where I have a very strong opinion that regulators have been letting their citizens down all over the world.
Yeah.
Maybe more here in the States because that's where I'm most familiar. So just talk about it here. But
Hmm.
we're not regulating what's being said out there, and there's a lot of things that are being said. I mean, look, the benefit of the internet is free information, right? So we have more information than ever. The
Yeah.
bad side is there's more misinformation than ever. And
Yeah.
if we don't have regulators really looking into this and putting restrictions or bumpers around the industry and what we can say, then it goes back to what we talked about. It's peer-to-peer education, because how can we trust any brand or any statement? They all seem to just be greenwashing to just drive sales, and you just wish regulators would wake up and do something about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the biggest aspect here in Canada as well, because they're focusing more on scare tactics, like everything, every communication that comes from Health Canada, which is like the governing body here for cannabis, is it's bad for you. The effects might last till 10 hours. Don't drive, don't lift heavy machinery. That's it. All of their studies are focused on how bad can you drive while smoking cannabis. Like literally, here in Subway, you see posters driving in the influence of cannabis, a research study. Do you want to participate? Like they're trying to find out studies where you can like dismiss cannabis. So it
It's
is crazy.
just
Yeah.
it's disheartening, because they're paid by the taxes of the industry.
Yeah.
And so I said this yesterday. I said it's really disheartening in California, speaking specifically here, for this industry to make so much tax revenue, to give all these regulators jobs, and then the regulators make up regulations that are like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
why don't we work together to make more sound regulation? And I get it, capitalism tries to get a regulation and steer them in ways that help open doors. I mean, the opioid crisis was one of them.
Yeah.
Purdue Pharma got in there and opened the door that opioids could be prescribed on a minor pain, and that was the floodgate that opened. So, I think that regulators need to be independent, but they need to be fluid and effective. And I fail to see that. Just quickly on the US, they legalized hemp.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. But they haven't regulated it at all. Not at all,
Mm,
but a little bit. But like,
little bit. Yeah.
I've got a 7-year-old mother going into shops, like, taking her phone. "Oh, look at this. They're trying to sell me this or sell me this. Where's the COAs? Where do they come from? How do we know what's in there? Did they get the products tested? There's just a lot of lack of regulation. And I would say this, there's regulation in the wrong areas, and there's a lack of regulation in areas that we would probably like to see more regulation. And so
Yeah.
I'm hopeful we'll figure that out because it's new. But I just feel like if we worked better together, we'd stop trying to combat, driving or continue on that, but combat false statements on the internet and make it a fine, like charge a company $2,000 every time they overstep. Give them a warning, and then make more money. Make it capitalism. Make it a
Yeah.
business of shutting down false information so that more honest and truthful information can reach consumers.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was a great conversation, Scott. And towards the end, I think we can all agree that we need regulations in the right places and not the wrong places. It was lovely having you on, and have a great day.
Thanks, Vipin. I appreciate you, man. And thanks for the time. Thanks for the conversation. And if you're ever down in LA, let's chat, brother.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Cheers.
Have a great one.